All right, hey people, Russ Jensen. So it's 4:30 on the 10th day of January 2017, Salt Lake City, Utah. I guess first I apologize for some of my emotional outbursts, some of my rants that sometimes I get caught up in and having these little video conversations. And apologize that I haven't gotten further along in producing things that people can actually come help me with. I forget that I've been studying this stuff for a long, long time. I've done a lot of things, and it's easy to forget that other people don't quite grasp a lot of these simple concepts because you've got a lot of conditioning that's been worked upon you. Education process, a lot of people that you've trusted over the years have lied to you about your system. Your government has lied to you. And that's, I guess, part of the reason why I'm so upset. Um, because your elected officials, they know a lot of these things. A lot of them do, especially in the judicial branch. Your judges, your justices, they know exactly what it is that I'm saying, and that's what I get so upset about. But um, so enough of that. So what I need to do is start getting on. We're starting getting into more of the actual nitty gritty understanding of the process that we're going to be going through. And one of the first beginning steps of that is challenging your jurisdiction. You know, and we do that through a number of ways. Notices that we file into the county recorder office, notices we file with our local court houses. We don't have to be in trouble to do these things, okay? Um, but we have to go back once again and start understanding the really what's going on, okay? The real true nature of the reality that we find ourselves in. We are at a disadvantage because uh, the establishment, the status quo, the people in charge right now uh, are operating on a playbook that they don't let us know what it is. They trick us, they use words that have definitions different than what we think they are. They so we need to start understanding who and what we are. And I keep throwing back to this, trying to get people to understand who and what you are because it is the critical key component. You don't understand this, don't handle yourself properly in this regard. It doesn't really matter what kind of paperwork we have, techniques, uh, facts, anything else. Okay? You have got to understand that you are here in the United States of America, the land of the free, where you believe that you have the protection of the Constitution. You are not a sovereign. Okay, now everybody talks about being a sovereign citizen. I'm a sovereign uh, nation. I'm a sovereign person. No, you are not. Okay, it's very important to understand that because we're operating now in the rule of law. Okay, law. Now, there's two forms of rule of law that we can access. One is constitutional law for us, and the other is at law or common law. But the superior to that is your fundamental law, constitutional law. And so we have to rely on the Constitution to give us our definition of words. And I've gone over this before in the past with people, but I'm going to do it again. We start talking about sovereignty and sovereigns, okay? So if we go to our book, Law of Nations, we go to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 10, accessing the Constitution, the fundamental law of the land, and then accessing the book that's referenced there directly, the Law of Nations. So we go to Book 1, talks about the very first section, talks about of the state and of sovereignty, tells us exactly what it is. So I'll read this here. Partway through it talks about the very design that reduces the number of men to form a society which has its common interest and which is to act in concert. It is necessary that it should be established a public authority to order and direct what is to be done by each in relation to the end of the association being the society that's formed among men. Okay, this political authority is the sovereignty and he or they who are invested with it are the sovereign. Now, they are invested with what? The political authority. But the political authority comes from where? The men that form the society. Okay? You are the lawful sovereign authority. You're not a sovereign. You're not the sovereignty. You're not a sovereign citizen. You are the sovereign authority. Now, you read your Declaration of Independence, that famous paragraph that everybody talks. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. They are endowed by them created with certain unalienable rights. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So, there's no such thing as government. There's no such thing as the United States. There's no such thing as the United States of America. There are people. Now, those United States of America, your state that you live in, you believe, Utah, California, Texas, Rhode Island, wherever it is, okay, that state is a title. It's words on paper. What there are living human beings, men and women, walking around, interacting with one another in a geographical area that's designated by longitude and latitude that represents your location on the dirt. There's no state, no government. It's all people. Everything else is concepts, words on paper. Very important to understand that. Okay? You try to claim that you are living somewhere on paper. That is a fiction. It is not reality. Okay? Now, that last sentence I just read, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Consent is everything. Everything. Okay? We cannot be forced to do anything without our consent. Now, we delegate some of our authority, our lawful sovereign authority, your authority, my authority, to this other group who are designated as the sovereigns that are then operating in the sovereignty, which is the structure of the government, the organization that's configured on paper. Office of the president, vice president, senator, judge. It's no different than a company that you might work for. You have a president, a CEO, your immediate supervisor. Okay? IBM, Apple, Microsoft, as corporations are what? Collections of people working together for their mutual safety, their mutual benefit. Not a real thing. Okay, so it's absolutely critical we understand the real nature of who and what you are. You are the authority. Now, when we start talking about challenging jurisdiction of a court, understanding what jurisdiction means, juris means law, diction, spoken, law spoken. What is the law that's operating there? Now, talked about the fact that jurisdiction has to be acquired and it can be assumed, but if it is challenged, it must be proven by facts, by words, by documents, by a lineage of authority from somewhere, some person to that court to have jurisdiction, whether it's coming from the Constitution through to your states, through your state legislative bodies. But if we understand about courts, jurisdiction, operating movement, the capacity to make decisions. That's what jurisdiction gives them, is the power to hear and determine the subject matter, the people, the controversy between the parties that are appearing in front of or appearing in the court. Okay? By your appearance, sometimes that's what they claim gives them some jurisdiction, but we need to understand any movement of the court of any kind, even to determine its own jurisdictional authority, is necessarily the exercise of jurisdiction. So this is where a lot of these groups get into trouble trying to challenge jurisdiction of the court. They go there with all these paperwork to challenge your jurisdiction. We want you to tell us if you have jurisdictional authority or not. Just by the mere fact that they have asked the court to move, they have given the court jurisdiction. We need to come from a separate court, start understanding the concepts of habeas corpus, and more importantly, understanding the concept that the jurisdiction of a court can only be challenged by another court to sit in judgment of. Right? Courts can only talk to courts. Okay? So, understanding now what you are, you're the lawful sovereign authority. You're one of the people that formed the United States, but formed a more perfect union, because the United States of America was pre-existing the current United States that was created in 1787 and 1789 through that document known as the Constitution for the United States of America and the Constitution for the United States. Okay? And if we read that document carefully, slowly, considering every word, thinking about what was the intent, start to find some very interesting things that they don't teach you in school. They don't teach your attorneys these things. This is the kind of information that only very few individuals in your legislative bodies, your executive bodies, governor's offices, and the judicial branch, your justices only understand these things. Okay? Do you read Article 1 of that Constitution of the United States of America? Very first line in that says, all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States. If we read Article 2, which is the executive branch, the executive power shall be vested in a President of the United States of America. It doesn't say the executive power of the United States. The executive power, okay, shall be vested in a President of the United States of America. Now, pretty sure the United States of America was pre-existing this document by a couple of years. 1777, I believe it was. Okay. Now, Article 3 is the judicial branch. It says the judicial power of the United States. Now, we just created up there a Congress of the United States, but the Congress of the United States was already pre-existing also in the Articles of Confederation. They were already created also. There was no real judicial branch, though. Now, once again, stop, think, read. The judicial power of the United States. Now, this document's creating this new organization to work on behalf of the United States of America, and they're calling it the United States. They're creating a more perfect union, because the Articles of Confederation are perpetual. That's still in force today. Didn't be made to go away. Wasn't replaced by. No. Okay. But we read further, the judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court, and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. Now, this is very important. Very, very key, important concept for people to understand. Congress is granted some legislative power, and the limits of that power were designated specifically at Article 1, Section 8, 1 through 16. Okay? Now, all those different things that they have power to legislate on. One of those happens to be Article 10, this Law of Nations, which gives us our authority then to access the Constitution. Clause 18 of Section 8 is what they call the necessary and proper, the bringing into power or bringing into effect clause. Okay, says to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers, which were those that were just listed in the enumerated sections in the Section 8, the enumerated powers clause. And all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States or any department or officer thereof. Okay? Does not give Congress the authority, the ability to grant power. Power has to be granted before it can be vested. Vesting is a process. Okay? It's how you mix the ingredients together, I guess. It's the steps that must be gone through for a transfer of power from one place to another. And so it's the only thing that can grant power are people. That power has to come from people. Now, the president elected, your legislative body are elected, that therefore is a grant of power, a grant of authority, then is vested to that person through that process of vesting. Your judges are not elected, they're appointed. Okay? Those courts do not have any power until it is granted to them. Now, if you're the sovereign authority, you're the sovereign in your individual world, which you are because you're the only one that lives there. Is it possible for me to grant your authority to another person? Or does that require you to do so? So I'm pretty sure it requires you to make a voluntary, consensual decision to grant authority. Now, start thinking. Okay, one Supreme Court. Okay, and what? Other inferior courts, as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. Now, establish means to create, to fix. Ordain means to pass authority to. Okay, so inferior courts, Congress may do those things. Okay, a superior court can only be what? Supreme Court can only be what? Okay, and it only has doesn't have authority, didn't give judicial power, shall be vested in time as ordained and established by the Congress. No, it shall be vested in one Supreme Court. The judicial power of the United States. What is the United States? The people. You are a people. You are the lawful sovereign authority for the United States. The United States cannot move without your consent. You've consented to be governed by these rules in this document known as the Constitution. Now, it's your sovereign authority that is delegated to the sovereigns, which are the people sitting in the offices of sovereignty, and sovereignty is just the organization on paper. Okay? So, what we have to start understanding is that you are the one Supreme Court. Always. If you're standing on the dirt of the land, Constitution's law of the land, is it not? You know, so need to start bearing that into mind. So what we have happening, you are the sovereign authority. Courts are only made up of men, aren't they? You're a man. It's your sovereign authority, your lawful sovereign authority, that creates the one Supreme Court. And that Supreme Court then is the only thing that can give another court, inferior or equal, the ability to move, do anything at all. So what we have to start doing and understanding is that in challenging their jurisdictional authority, we first must establish our jurisdictional authority. And part of that process goes to breaking the nexus, rebutting or challenging the prima facie evidence that they have created to make the presumption that you are a subject of theirs, that you have waived all your constitutional protections, you have given them all of your lawful sovereign authority as a man, all the authority that was granted to you by your creator. First, we establish our Supreme Court. Now, I'm going to leave it off with that. We'll come back later on. We'll start getting into nuts and bolts of how we do that. But it's very important to understand you are the sovereign authority. You're not the sovereignty. You're not a sovereign. You provide the authority for those individuals as sovereigns, and the organization of sovereignty requires your authority to have any permission to do anything in relative relationship to you. I won't get into all the details about legislative decrees and all that kind of stuff. Understanding you are the lawful sovereign authority. That's what you are. Okay? You're not the sovereign. You're not the king. You're not the governor. You're none of those things. You're the authority upon which they get their authority. So, one other thing also too, okay, be careful. We're using language. You don't have constitutional rights. You have naturally occurring rights, naturally occurring states of being which are protected by that document. That Constitution is fundamental law, gives the instructs the sovereigns and the sovereignty of the government and the government officials the extent of their power and the methods in which they are to express that power and no further. Okay? You, as one of the people, you're outside of the Constitution. You need to look at it as a shield that's standing in front of you. That is what its purpose is. Okay? And we access the instruction manual on how to use that document properly at Article 1, Section 8, Clause 10, Law of Nations. That is the instruction book for using your Constitution. And how it is that we can use that as our shield, also as our sword. Okay? You don't have constitutional rights. And when you start talking about my First Amendment right, okay? My constitutional right to carry a gun, okay? They instantly know that you don't know what you are. Okay? Because they know that those rights, they're naturally occurring. You always have a right of assembly. You always have a right of personal worship. You always have a right to carry a gun. Those are indispensable obligations. Those are rights of nature that are superior to their legislative acts. Always. Always. Okay? Constitution's your shield. Okay? You don't live in it. Okay? It doesn't give you anything except for what? An ability to defend yourself against government officials and government action, and an ability to engage offensively, bring your own attacks or actions on government and government officials through the use of that document. Okay? But it doesn't give you anything. In fact, it's your lawful sovereign authority, your life force energy, the thing that animates you. That is the sovereign power. The power that all their technology still don't know how life works, do they? Where it comes from, where it goes to? No. Hey, don't let them steal that from you, which they've done. So we're going to talk about how we can sever that tie and start using the Constitution properly for what it's supposed to be. So, you are the lawful sovereign authority upon which everything rests. So, I love everybody. I'll talk to you guys again here soon, and we'll trying to get into the nuts and bolts of some of these things, paperwork, and but it's most important you understand who and what you are. You are the lawful sovereign authority. You are the authority that they operate upon. Without your authority, they have no authority. So, talk to you later.